Hi Eladim. Right now we're going to work on our Pesach. So we remember yesterday we heard about this family, this beautiful family, where the Ima's name was Yocheved and the Abba's name was Amram and the daughter's name was Miriam and the son's name was Aaron. And they had a beautiful son named Moshe, and they were so sad because they had to put the baby in the river. The sister Miriam put the baby in the river in a basket, and Batya came, the daughter of Paro, and she took the baby out of the water. The baby grew up in the house of Yocheved because she was the nursemaid for the baby. And then he moved into the house of Paro, and he grew up and he was in the house of Paro. And remember in Parsha we learned the story that one day Paro's sorcerers had a dream, and they saw a vision that one day there would be a Jewish boy who would grow up, and this Jewish boy would take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, and he would no longer have slaves. And they told Paro that they thought this little boy was Moshe, and he said, no, it can't be Moshe. And he said, so we're going to do a test, and we're going to take 2 baskets. One basket is going to be full of hot coals, the other is going to be money. Children should want the hot coals. They had red on it, it looks shiny and fun, but he's going to go for the money because he really wants your crown, and he really wants to be king and be ruler. Now Moshe was about to go for the basket with the money, but an angel came and moved his hand, and he touched the coals, and his hands got very hot. He went to put it by his mouth to cool it down, and the hot coals from the hotness from his fingers touched his tongue, and for the rest of his life Moshe had a hard time talking. Now this whole story I just told you is a midrash. It is not a story that you would find in the Chumash, but it's still a story that we learn about Moshe. And then Moshe grows older in the castle, and then one day he goes outside and he sees all the avadim, and they're working so hard, and he sees somebody hurt a Jew, and he then goes to stop him, and the person dies. And now he gets in trouble, and he has to run away to Midian, and he marries Tzipporah, and eventually he's taking a walk. We learned this all yesterday, and he sees a burning bush that just doesn't burn, and the inside is Hashem telling him that he needs to go back to Mitzrayim, and with his brother Aaron, he will take Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim. And he goes to the king, and the king laughs at him. And he says, who do you think you are? And who do you think this Hashem is? There's no way I'm going to let you just come in here and take Bnei Israel and Mitzrayim. He says, Moshe says, no, but if you don't let them out of Mitzrayim, a lot of bad things are going to happen. And he says, I'm not afraid. So now we're going to read a book that's going to tell us about the Makot. Now some of us already heard this story around Parshat time, Parshat Shemot, and through Vayera Bo, but we're going to read it again because it's a great story that tells us all about the Makot, and the pictures are a little funny and the words are a little bit silly. And then after we're going to read another book that you guys loved about Paro and the fabulous frog invasion. Okay, the 10 Makot. Come hear the great tale of a rich mighty land, whose wicked king tried to fight Hashem's command. Mitzrayim's king Paro had the Jews enslaved, but Hashem had decided that they should be saved. Moshe wanted his people to live by his plan, to follow his law for the good of each man. So Moshe sent to tell Paro Hashem's word. Send out my people, their cry has been heard. But the king saw no reason to see his slaves free. He boasted, no ruler is greater than me. Who's Hashem? Paro laughed. That he orders me so? I rule the Jews, and I won't let them go. This foolish king's future would soon be undone. Of the 10 Makot of Mitzrayim, blood was plague number 1. Blood oozed from the rivers like thick, sticky jelly. Dead fish made the waters disgusting and smelly. Blood in the bathtub and blood in the sink. No water at all, not even a drop left to drink. The only fresh water was found by the slaves. Let us drink, begged their masters, or we're going to our graves. But the moment the Jews shared a few sips, the water turned bloody on the Egyptians' lips. Even Paro was thirsty, but still he said, no, they want to serve Hashem? Well, I won't let them go. Now the only way that Mitzrayim could get water was they had to pay a lot of money to the Jewish people. And if they paid a lot of money, then the water was water for them and it didn't turn into blood. So Moshe said to Paro, why don't you give in? You're fighting Hashem. Don't you know you can never win? Next came the second plague, frogs, big and bumpy. They hid in the houses and made people jumpy. They sprang from the rivers, dripping and slimy, rolling in bed sheets and making them grimy. In the kitchens of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, the ovens were shaking with frogs leaping out of the bread that was baking. Frogs hopped onto shoulders and croaked into ears. They made such a racket it brought one to tears. But the frogs only made Paro's stubbornness grow. These are my slaves, and I shall not let them go. So said Moshe, 2 plagues and you still don't agree? Perhaps they'll give in after plague number 3. Being cruel to the Jews carries a price. Mitzrayim's dust will now turn into lice. They came for a visit, those unwanted guests, and no magic helped to get rid of the pests. The Egyptians tried soaking in rivers and springs, but still could not flee from the small itchy things. Others took cover in tunnels down deep, but way underground lice continued to creep. Shouted Paro, I am the ruler above and below. Nothing can force me to let my slaves go. But Moshe just said, oh, you arrogant king. You've suffered 3 makot without learning a thing. Then Mitzrayim shook with a deafening roar. Wild beasts stalked the streets in plague number 4. Breaking down doors and charging upstairs were lions and leopards and mean grizzly bears. The Egyptians hid trembling in barrels and boxes, protecting themselves from mad dogs and foxes. Paro hurried to Moshe, I'll free them today. Just please have Hashem drive these creatures away. But when the beasts left, evil Paro said no and took back his promises. I won't let them go. Said Moshe, beware, Hashem is fighting our battle because you have treated us worse than your cattle. You make the Jews struggle with wagons and plows while you give your rest to your oxen and cows. But the cows that you pamper to grow fat and thick with plague number 5 will get terribly sick. So ill were those cows, they could not even moo. They lay around helpless with no strength to chew. But the cows of the Jews had no coughs or no wheezes, no chills and no fevers, no sniffles or sneezes. Cried Paro, I'm king here, and my slaves must know, if they want to serve Hashem, I shall not let them go. But the greatest of kings has no strength of their own. The power to rule is in Hashem's hands alone. Stubborn King Paro was acting absurd. How foolish to think he would have the last word. Hashem sent plague number 6, hot, watery blisters on aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. On man and on beast, those boils kept doubling. All over their bodies, big blotches were bubbling. It swelled up on bellies, this dreaded disease. It burst out on elbows and knuckles and knees. Even Paro had boils from forehead to toe, but he couldn't bend. Nope, my slaves, they will not go. Then Egypt was warned about plague number 7. Hailstones like boulders would rain down from heaven. Most people did not need to hear anymore. They ran into their houses and bolted each door. But the ones who were stubborn ignored all advice. They stayed in their fields and they were struck down by ice. Hail fell down flaming with flashes of lightning and loud bursts of thunder that made it so frightening. Paro quickly called Moshe. They're free men, I swear. And just then the hail stopped. It stopped in midair. But then Paro laughed. For a few flakes of snow, did you really expect me to let my slaves go? Said Moshe, the 8th Makkah will be armies of locusts. Cried the king, I'm not frightened by your hocus pocus. Paro's men begged, save what's left of our land, but still he refused to heed Hashem's command. The locusts invaded and made their attack, munching grapes from the vines from their mid-morning snack. And when they got down to some serious eating, every tree in the land took a terrible beating. Paro called Moshe, he wasted no time. I've enslaved them too long, I admit to my crime. But when the plague stopped, wicked Paro said no. He again changed his mind. My slaves shall not go. The 9th plague gave Mitzrayim a horrible fright. 3 days of thick darkness, not one ray of light. For being so wicked, so heartless and mean, this dark was the darkest to ever be seen. Whoever tried walking could not lift his feet, and anyone sitting was stuck up to his seat. But the slaves were now blessed with miraculous light. It shone in the daytime and even at night. Paro said, Moshe, I'll free them today. The people may go, but the animals stay. But our flocks, said Moshe, are needed, you know. Sorry, said Paro. I'm not going to let them go. The 10th Makkah, said Moshe, is surely the worst. You've time yet to stop it. I'm warning you first. But foolhardily Paro felt somehow he'd win. His land all but ruined, still he wouldn't give in. In the quiet of night, loud cries filled the air. The Egyptians were weeping and pulling their hair. In the house of Mitzrayim, the oldest sons died, for no one had listened when Hashem's children cried. Leave my land, ordered Paro, I surrender to you. Take your people and cattle and pray for me too. The Egyptians were pressing them not to be slow. You've made enough trouble. Get moving. Now, go. The slaves rushed, not waiting for their dough to rise, but the future would bring them a dreadful surprise. For Paro, of course, changed his mind once again, chasing after the Jews with Egyptians' armed men. Attacked from all sides, the Jews marched into the sea, but faith in Hashem's mercy would soon set them free. The sea split for the Jews to cross on dry land. Then it came crashing back, and the soldiers were drowned. Mitzrayim lay ruined with many men dead, and the slaves were now free with their homeland ahead. No more need the Jews fear any man. With Hashem as their master, true freedom began. Okay, Eladim. So, let's sing our Makot song. Dam tefardei yakinim arov dever shchim barad arbem choshech makat bechorot. Those are the Eser Hamakot. 10 Mako, 10, the Mitzrayim were punished again and again. So now we're going to hear about Paro and the fabulous frog invasion. Some of you heard this story when we did Parshat Va'era, but we're going to do it a second time because it was so funny and it's a great story to refresh us at this time right before Pesach. Get ready to laugh. Bnei Yisrael were slaves long ago to the nasty king of Mitzrayim, who was known as Paro. But Hashem set them free with a hand oh so strong, with wonders and miracles and a happy frog song. But by the great Nile River you can always hear singing from the happy little frogs, always jumping and singing. We must thank you, Hashem, every day at all times, for this beautiful river, for the mud and the slime. For tasty black beetles, we love how they crunch. For the flies and mosquitoes, we enjoy them for lunch. For our long sticky tongues and quick legs that spring, for all of these, Hashem, your praises we sing. But the evil Egyptians and Paro, their king, had a very different song that they would all sing. Thank you, O Nile, for your water so sweet. You water our fields so we can grow wheat. You're the splash in our baths and you're our cup of tea. Without you, mighty river, where would we be? Early one morning, Paro came to the Nile to stroll on the banks of his river a while. Little did he know that tiny frog eyes were watching him when he stopped in surprise at the sight of two men with long beards and deep eyes, whose face shone bright as the sun in the skies. They were Moshe and Aaron, and they came without warning to speak to old Paro on that fine sunny morning. Then Aaron raised the staff in his hand, and the river turned to blood throughout the whole land. We learn that the makot that had to do with water, Moshe did not put his stick on the water, but Aaron did, because Moshe was saved from the water. Who can tell me? When was Moshe saved? When he was a little baby, and the Nile River didn't take him out into a place where he couldn't be saved. It brought him right to Batya where he could be saved. So because he had a karat tov, because he was so grateful and thankful to the water, any of the makot that had to do with putting the stick by the water, Moshe did not put the stick, his brother Aaron did. Then was blood in the bathtub and blood in the sink, not a single drop of water to drink. Now the fun-loving frogs had a new song to sing for the thirsty Egyptians and Paro their king. The river is nothing, don't you all know? Hashem is the boss, it's his word that goes. And if you still think the secret to life is the Nile, we think you'll be thirsty for a long while. But that stubborn Paro refused to give up. His magicians took some water into a cup and turned it to blood with a wink and a flink. And you see, Paro said, it's all just a trick. So Aaron once again raised the staff in his hand, and the Nile started bubbling as a shudder shook the land. Then out of the river there arose a great beast, the most enormous frog in the west or the east. Its flippers crushed trees, its head reached a cloud, and its croak was like thunder booming and loud. It pursed its big lips and let out a screech, and every green ear for miles it reached. From the rivers in the valley, from the mountains on high, they came by the thousands to answer the cry. They jumped all around Mitzrayim, croaking and singing the whole time, while their giant brother sank beneath the water and slime. The biggest and fattest kept hopping along till they reached Paro's door and began a new song. Paro, oh Paro, we know you're inside. Paro, oh Paro, there's nowhere to hide. The light of Paro's glory, the whole of Hashem's glory, the whole land it fills, and so do his creatures, if that is his will. Paro was asleep, his cap on his head, when the frogs burst in and hopped on his bed. They covered all of Mitzrayim like a great green cloud, as their croaking song grew terribly loud. Frogs, 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 we're here and we're there, and Hashem's mighty hand is everywhere. We're inside your houses and all over your beds. We croak in your bellies and we sit on your heads. Then the brave frogs did something you might think they wouldn't. They hopped into the ovens now. Don't say they couldn't. And those ovens were hot with a burning red flame. But those frogs hopped right in for Hashem's holy name. Day and night the frogs croaked and they sang until every Egyptian's eardrums began to ring. Finally, Paro could take it no more. I want them all out of the front door, out of my bed and off of my head. I want them all out, alive or dead. Moshe, please pray to Hashem to take them from me, then all of his people, I'm going to let them go free. So Moshe went to Hashem to pray, and all was quiet. The very next day, the frogs lay lifeless on the ground. No croaking, no singing, not one little sound. But if you perked up your ears and listened real well, you could still hear their song from where, pray tell. Then out of the oven popped one little hopper, then popped two more, and here is the topper. Every brave frog that jumped into the oven came bursting right out, pushing and shoving. And this is what they sang. A miracle, we're all still alive. Of all of the frogs in Mitzrayim, we're the last to survive. Only Hashem could do such a wonderful thing. He's our beloved master, and he is our king. So they all hopped back to their home in the Nile, dancing and croaking and singing the whole while. But as soon as they left, that mean old Paro went back on his word, much to his own sorrow, because Hashem was not waiting for Paro, you see. If he wanted in a moment, he could have set the Jews free. But he had 8 more plagues to bring to the land, to deliver his justice and show his great hand. Hold on. And when the Jews finally left Mitzrayim on that great day, the frogs were still singing of Hashem's wondrous ways. Okay, so it's so fun to learn about the Makot. Tomorrow for our Pesach lesson, I'm going to ask all of you, you're going to put on the video and you're going to have this with you. Okay, remember this packet? It came inside your envelope. You're going to take out this packet. We're going to be doing page 1 through 6 together. All of you have the answers. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be reading it together, and we're going to be going over the questions. You're going to check to make sure your answers are right, because we did it in 2 days quickly. So we want to make sure you have the right answers. And then you'll be able to color anything that you haven't colored up to page 6. The next day we'll do the second half. Okay, bye.